You could test it out. We'll just get some people into the behind the scenes here in our pre-show time. Some people joining us here with Cam Harris. There's my buddy Arash. He will not mind me giving him a shout out. More people coming in. He owns multiple practices in Missouri. Awesome guy. So this is going to be an awesome session with Cam Harris, the brother of the amazing Dr. Lincoln Harris, coming to us live from Australia. It's a whole nother day there. It's time for wind down time here, Cam, and you guys just are having coffee in Australia. If you want to test out sharing your screen for a second, Cam, before we get started, you're welcome to. While we're letting some people come in, I would love if you guys shared in the chat. Are you a dental practice owner? Where are you a dental practice owner? What are some challenges that you face in your dentisting life? And Cam gets set of this here. I've known Dr. Lincoln Harris for a few years. He runs an amazing Facebook group, Ripe Global. He runs a fantastic training program that his brother Cam is going to tell us about. The reason why you want to pay attention to this is multi-purpose, but if you have dental associates who you are in charge of making sure that they have clinical competence, communication confidence, and do better, dentist better, help you produce more patient-centered production, this is for you. I'm Paul Dr. Nacho Goodman, founder of Dental Nachos. We're going to start our interview with Cam Harris here in just a minute. Cam Harris is the co-founder of Ripe Global, Future of Dental Education. His brother, Dr. Lincoln Harris, is a fantastic dentist, almost as funny as me, Cam. I'm not going to say he's as funny as I am.
So, well, I'm the serious guy. There's got to be a clown. There's got to be a serious guy.
I want to point out I am the dentist. You are the non-dentist on this call. You're the normalist person. We have more people coming in here to hear what we're going to share. So I'd love for you guys to share in the chat if you can. How long have you been a dentist? Do you own a practice? And do you have any associates working for you? Are you an associate? So Cam, people are coming in. I think it's great to get started. So I'm going to ask you to kind of just orient our audience, whether they're watching in live or whether they're watching on demand later, as to who you are and the purpose of what you're going to be sharing with us.
Yeah, so thanks, Paul. Look, it's really exciting to be on a call with a whole bunch of American dentists this morning. My name's Cameron Harris, and most people call me Cam, except when they're mad at me, which includes my clown brother when he's mad at me. And so we're focusing really heavily on DSOs and groups of clinics, and how do you actually maximize and drive the optimum productivity per chair hour that you can possibly get, and then manage the life cycle of the performance of the associates and clinicians in your group. So I will actually make the claim, though, that as you mentioned, that I am not a dentist, and so one of the things that I will not be talking about today is buckles, and I will not be talking about aesthetics. So that is not my thing. And in our business, we've got two founders. We've got the dentist guy, that's Lincoln, and he's clinically absolutely amazing. But if you've got a business question about how to transform businesses, drive digital transformation, adapt technology, optimize process, that's my thing. I'm also the managing director of Ripe Global. So day to day, I keep the show running down here. So that's a bit about me.
Awesome.
Makes sense?
Yeah. All of us crazy dentist type need someone like you to keep us accountable. So I can see why Link needs you to do is to make dreams come true for dentists.
Yeah, you should keep telling him that,
Yeah. So what you can do, Cam, is basically walk us through, like you'd be telling anyone what you guys do. I'll interject with good ideas. I tell my wife I don't interrupt. I just interject with good ideas. But this is a super informal, just talk. People in the Zoom are watching online can ask us some questions about kind of turn this over to you and let us share what you guys do.
Yeah, look, I think before I do that, if it's okay, Paul, just talk a little bit about where I've come from and why I'm so excited to be here talking to, and I'm going to use your quote, crazy dentist, because I'm not allowed to being a non-dentist, and so for 25 years, I've had the good fortune of working in industries that are going through very significant change and transformation across manufacturing, banking and finance, retail, airlines, travel, pretty much any industry, even some of the big education institutions across Australia, Asia Pacific, and the Southern Hemisphere. And what's really interesting is that in all of the transformation journeys and making people productivity journeys, every single one of these organizations I have worked with focus in on how do I actually then attract people, how do I build people, and how do I keep people? How do I then create processes in my organization that work? How do I then engage customers to deliver the product that we are delivering, whether it's an airline ticket or a physical product? And then how do I do that in a physical space or location that I can then make an amazing experience? And so what I've found over the last 3 years working with dentists is there's just this absolute parallel with almost every other business that we've had the good fortune of dealing with for many, many years. And dentistry has this enormous opportunity to continue on its growth journey that it's currently on, but the parallels are quite incredible. And so when you sort of look at it, you sort of break it down to, in dentistry, associates are your people or your clinicians, like any organization has. Your clinic is the place. That's, we're trying to make them connected, great experiences, bright, airy, fun, lively. I go in and stir up the clinic next door on a pretty regular basis. Your patients are your customer, but your product is your procedures. And when you sort of really boil it down, when your product is your procedure, that then essentially means that if you want lots of products, you've got to be able to offer lots of procedures. And then you've got to start thinking about how you make that happen. And so here's the challenge that we've seen. Every person that we talk to is really focusing heavily on how do I get people through the door into my clinic? How do I actually get as many people that I can then get to consider doing a treatment plan? How do we then convert them into spending money for the treatment plan? How do we make sure that experience over the next year of being treated by the amazing Dr. Nachos and create that sort of loyalty? And then how do we make sure they keep coming back and recommend their friends? And so really, with all the change in business and now working in industry, in actual fact, nothing's actually changed.
Yeah.
However, here's what's interesting. We always talk about the theory of constraints, or what are the bottlenecks in the business. And if you look at all of that investment that's taking place, and there's so many programs to get people to the associate, and that then essentially means that the absolute king of productivity of a group of dentists in a DSO or group organization is actually the associate. I mean, they own your success. In any business, without them doing well, you just can't do well other than the primary clinician. So when we sort of look at that, they're your biggest asset. They're amazing when they're amazing, but they're also your biggest single cost. They're the single biggest constraint. Most leaders I talk to find them to be the biggest single challenge, and yet they're also the single most significant opportunity. And so when we look at DSOs, Paul, and for the broader audience, you sort of go, well, what's sort of stopping every one of these guys doing $1,000, $2,000 per chair hour and amazing dentistry across all the different disciplines? And that really is the question to ask: is if we're going to help this audience of people, that's the audience that's the question that needs to be asked and that we need to find an answer to. And here's what's interesting. There's a very old quote, really old guy, we've all seen him, but the bottom line is, if you don't believe in your product, neither does your customer. And so if your product's your procedures and you have a clinician who is not as confident and well skilled as they otherwise could be, we then have a problem. So what we're all about with all of our programs is, how do we build the confidence of the clinician so that they can confidently approach every bit of the procedure and all of the procedures with absolute confidence? How do we make sure they know what they're doing? And if you join those two things together, they believe. And if you believe, you can sell a treatment plan. If you don't, you just can't. And if we get that right, we believe that we can then maximize the productivity per chair hour in every chair in a DSO. So it's sort of like the core focus of how we come into this place, if that makes sense, Paul.
Yeah.
And we're really, really excited about what we can do here. So I guess the question is, how do you do that? And so what we sort of looked at is there's so much education out there and programs which are sort of this quick fix, get a consultant in, get something done, go to a weekend, you learn a skill, and that's going to be the you're going to go from 8 units of Crown & Bridge to 50 units of Crown & Bridge a month from one weekend of work. We're going to get to 10 starts of ortho a month because we did a 3-day weekend course, and we're going to start doing implants and socket grafts because we spent a week doing it. And we just don't think that's actually realistic. So we've sort of modeled the way we teach people to get the effectiveness we are, very much like you learn any other skill. And so what I propose to you guys is, if you were to play in a concert with a grand piano with an orchestra, how much practice and how would you go about becoming competent and confident to turn up and be this lady, which may take quite a bit of work for you, Paul. But the reality is, how do we actually turn up and we nail a performance? And so for a classic pianist, it's a 10-year journey to get there. How do we shorten that 10 years, but also get success? And you can't learn to be a concert pianist by turning up for one weekend a year, even one weekend a month. You've just got to be continually practicing, whether it's hockey, football, scuba diving, orchestra, artistic pursuits. It requires this constant practice. So we've redefined the way we educate to be less about just focusing on theory and quick fixes, and then how do we mentor and coach people so they can practice continually without jumping on a plane, and also without practicing in an unreal environment. We want to basically learn in our clinic using the tools that we use in a realistic environment. And if you kind of use the most basic of that with implantology education, as far as I know, at least in Australia, we don't treat hogs, I think you call it.
Yeah.
And yet, when we go to an implant course, we're sitting there with pigs' heads all over the tables, and we're actually practicing our procedures with pigs' heads. So we're sort of, how do we learn in our clinic, but with human equivalent or lifelike models in a simulated environment? And that's what we're putting together in all of our education that we do. And so when we sort of start packaging that all up, it's like, how do we then get a kit into the hands of every clinician in their office to learn? And we're investing really heavily in the connectivity of a simulation lab, learning in your office. By not closing your chair continuously to attend education, it reduces the cost of educating and building out your clinicians by about 70%, and they learn about twice as fast, along with all of the other normal education things that you actually go about. But so it's sort of like the core bundle of ingredients, but we also need to make sure that every associate, that we only get them learning or focused on learning the very things that they need to learn. And so we've got everything from, just online content through to 2-year virtual residencies, very much like any other residency, where you learn over a 2-year period and you lay down the pathway of your excellence and skills continuously over that 2-year period. And even with that, depending on whether you're a new grad, you've got people that you're coaching and nurturing that just graduated with their $500,000 debt from university, whether it's your restorative skills, your surgical skills, orthodontic, being a multidisciplinary full mouth rehab dentist. Across that full spectrum, we have a range of things. However, we don't want people to educate for the sake of education's sake, education itself. And so what we're doing is creating a platform, and what you're about to see is brand new, will be launched on about the 18th of January, where for every associate in a DSO, that they can perform an assessment of their clinical confidence across a range of disciplines that they can complete and you can see. And then that can be baseline on a 3-monthly or 6-monthly basis as people improve their confidence and also their production. And by the middle of this year, we'll be pulling the production data directly from clinical software. So you can kind of just track the benchmarking like any other business. You are here now. In 6 months, you're in a different place. And 6 months after that, you're in a different place again. And so rather than talk about it, Paul, I thought I'd just show people really quickly 2 views of this. It's going to be a very pretty looking interface within the platform itself. You'll go through and do tick box assessments, and it will then spit out the type of things you're going to need to learn as a clinician, which the clinician can see. But like all good things, we started in Excel. So I'm going to just flick over to the initial draft version just so you can see how that's actually coming together. And so all of the major DSOs in Australia, the big guys, we're working with all of them to do this at the moment. In fact, we've built this with these guys. And it really just starts with, making sure we understand from a general clinical perspective where they're at using a confidence scale, a treatment plan proposed scale, and a treatment plan accepted scale. Everything's based on a per hour of unit of production, and then general things that they're interested in. And then it goes into, how long has it taken to do a crown prep, in terms of just clinical duration. And so what we know, awesome guys are down in that sort of, anywhere from 7 to 20-minute range. New guys out of university, sometimes they can agonize for an hour or just not be game to do it. And if they go through this scale, including the volumes of dentistry, we can benchmark people against our known benchmarks of how they're performing based on what looks good versus what then demonstrates they need to learn. And we do that across restorative, ortho, implantology. We get the clinical hours and clinical production metrics in there. It takes about 20 minutes to do an assessment like this for a dentist, and it will then spit out just hold on while this refreshes, a pretty graph. So it'll actually spit out a graph that shows their confidence versus their knowledge and skill gap. And that'll do that for every person in an organization. What it will then also do, Paul, is rather than learning for learning's sake, if it suggests that you really just need to do posterior, because that is the real start point of doing, good high volume dentistry, it'll tell you that's what you should do. So we're not saying you need to do implantology if in fact that you should be really focusing in on mastering your posterior volume units, yeah? And then if you really then want to do a full 2-year course, forget the actual numbers because they're just dummy numbers, but it will then go, you should probably do a 2-year course. If you do that, it'll be positive return on investment in less than 6 months. Most people see it in 3 to 4. And for every dollar you spend on education over a 2 to 3 year period, you get $74 back based on the data we're seeing from our current active clinicians. Yeah. And so that's probably just a really good snapshot, Paul, of where we're going and what we're doing. And then, the website is the front line for all of that and provides the overview and the assessment tools for the DSO or the administrative people to look in and see every one of their clinicians. They'll end up seeing a view of all of their clinicians, which basically shows, as you can see here on the right of the screen. So if you've got 100 clinicians, it'll actually just show them in a list. And when you go into that clinician, it will show you their current confidence versus learning gap by the 3 major units of dentistry disciplines. What it will also do is track their CE compliance against your known re-compliance renewal dates. It will show you what they're currently learning in their learning pathway, and you can then go in and see the assessments that they're doing. And the most important ones of those are things like case presentations, and you can, as a clinical owner, see the work that they're doing that's being submitted as a case presentation within their learning pathway. And we're getting some pretty great, amazing results. We got a few people. I think, Paul, you've interviewed some of these. I think you chat with Charles the other day.
Dr. Chip recently. I mean, this is such transformative stuff to our profession. I mean, one of my close friends is watching, and there's multiple associates, and constantly investing in your associates to do better improves the morale of your office, the money part of your office. And as practice owners, it is what you said is what Dr. Chip says here, the huge convenience factor. because just, you live and breathe this every day, Cam, but just in case, just to reinforce, this is done from their operatories outside of patient care hours through a platform that allows them to work on models that are lifelike with the instruction of the RIPE Global team. Is that accurate?
That is spot on accurate. I mean, what we're finding, and you talk to a lot of clinic owners, and someone goes to a weekend course and they're using a different flowable, they're using a different, a veneers supplier for their lab work. They're using a different handpiece. They fall in love with equipment and supplies that you don't have back in your clinic. They come back and they want you to change everything. But the other thing is that most people historically have learnt in an unreal environment where you're fed coffee regularly, cups of tea. You've got your Kit Kats and your quinoa breakfast. Quinoa. I saw you saying no bread and butter.
It's, no, what is bread it? And butter, right? Yeah. You got a quinoa and kale. It's a
quinoa and kale.
I also want to share as we chat. Use the Q&A feature. Someone informed me the chat wasn't working, but use the Q&A feature if you have a question. But one of the things I also think, Cam, is that it gives and I just kind of thought of this in this moment from someone who's taught many hours of CE and done CE, hands-on, live patient. It also gives a privacy factor for people to be able to kind of learn in a private way, but also you guys make them work, right? And whether we're taking the courses ourselves, you're going to do reps. I mean, Chip was saying, you don't just do one crown prep or one posterior composite. Tell us about the rep factor and Link's sort of commitment to making sure that the students get the right number of reps.
Yeah, and look, if you look at a lot of courses, and we've all done them, where you go to a course and you spend, all day doing two things. In your world, that's a crown prep or a veneer. And so then you go back to your office and you got a boss like Paul breathing down the back of your neck, wanting you to do 10 a day. And so you're learning in an environment which is not replicating that sort of stress and workload and intensity in which you're going to practice dentistry every single day. And so when we teach based on experiencing the real life conditions of the way you're going to work on Monday when you go back to the office with a patient in the chair. And so to give you an example, if we do a crown prep hands-on day, in that crown prep hands-on day, they'll do something like 14 to 18 crown preps in an 8-hour period. Their first crown prep, they're given 20 minutes. Their next crown prep, they're given 10. Then they can practice all day. We don't schedule lunches and morning teas. And the reason we don't is because that's just not what happens in a clinical day in any clinic that I have ever seen. And so they basically work. They then have a break when they want to break, the same as when you're a clinician. At the end of the day, we then get them to do a 10-minute crown prep and a 20-minute crown prep. And what we find is by the end of every single time we do this, with the coaching and the mentoring and the method we use, by the end of the day, almost all students in our programs can master a beautiful lab-ready, won't be criticised by your boss crown prep in 20 minutes.
Yeah,
and the 10-minute ones is adequate, So adequate at 10, but they normally beautiful for 20. And so it's that rapid intensity, so that then on Monday when they're in a chair with a real patient, they can actually replicate a 20-minute crown prep with confidence. And by doing that practice in their own chair, Paul, in their own chair with their own materials, and a lot of our students also get their assistants to actually be helping them while they're learning. Cool. And you're actually teaching the workflow that's going to be clinically appropriate. So Monday, they literally don't change anything. They literally pick up the same handpiece with the same materials, with the same assistant in the same position, but it's just now a real patient. And that total connection of the mind and the body and the activity is absolutely transformative.
It's like learning to cook in your own kitchen. I know of someone watching has his office do a fair number of implants and he is growing. Tell us about the fellowship in implant dentistry. So basically, if you have associates and, some are doing implants, some aren't, and you want to get the ones who aren't caught up to speed, they might have skills in extractions already, but no skills with implants. How does the implant fellowship work?
Yeah, so the implant fellowship this is a really big thing for us, because what we've done is enabled people to master to the equivalent of full mouth or full arch implant dentistry over a 2-year period. So Tai Kwan in the United States, periodontist, amazing guy, and a whole horde of amazing surgeons to help coach people through it. So we basically, in that course, runs through from socket graft and the basics, all starting with site prep as being the foundation. And then it goes through all of the areas, including soft tissue, and then to full arch dentistry. The big thing with this is probably 2 key things. All of the practice that we do is in the chair. It's got materials supplied for the implant components using models, which I didn't bring with me tonight. I do apologize, but the models that we've created, rather than putting them in a module on a desk with just an articulator, everything we do is inside a head using a mannequin. And the models we've got are soft tissue microsurgery appropriate, and they are bone equivalent, including with things like sinus cavities. And so even doing a sinus lift is actually included as a capability within our model.
It's an amazing opportunity. I mean, one of the things I like to highlight when I interviewed Dr. Chip, and he's a fellow practice owner like me, no matter what age or stage of your career, investing in making your life less stressful, making the patient experience less stressful, recentering some of your foundational skills. What Chip had said was he took these courses on veneers and ortho, but he was struggling with his class 2 composites and some of those things. So what you guys have is you have a whole menu from a dentist right out of school to a practice owner. You guys have great feedback from these participants. What's next for RIPE? You know, if someone's watching this video or watching now and they said, I want to sign myself up, I also want to share, my team member can put in the chat, if you text RIPE to 215-543-6454, you'll get a special nacho discount as RIPE is an awesome sponsor of our group. But when's the next course people can sign up for if they're looking for themselves or their associates?
Yeah, so we've actually got 3 that are coming online for the March period, Paul. So our most popular historical course is our restorative dentistry what we call our virtual residency. So you results in a fellowship. We've had a couple hundred people go through that course with amazing results, and that's the ones like Chip that you spoke to, and that really focuses on posterior. It focuses on aesthetics. So there's a 6-month module on posterior, 6-month module on aesthetics. It then has a 6-month module on veneers and cosmetics, and then it works through into full mouth rehab. Can be done either as a full 2-year block, which is where we're getting the most transformative results, or it can actually be done in a modular format. So if you have someone that is in your group and their units of crown and bridge are moderate, their number of veneers are moderate, and you want to see them get that production up significantly, 100% this is the course which will double, triple, or quadruple someone's productivity over a sort of 1 to 2 year period. The second one of the courses is really then the follow-on from that, if people don't want to go into orthodontics, which is to then get into getting implant from single socket through to full arch implantology. And again, it is modularized in the 6-month modules. People can kind of choose their own adventure to some extent and kind of decide where to go within that. And then in actual fact, our highest registration course right now in terms of just upswing in volume is our new aligner orthodontics course that's led by Dr. Claudia Pinter. This is amazing. So this is full orthodontics. It's not just smile realignment. It includes TADS, but probably the really big thing about this aligner and orthodontics is that it really focuses heavily on how to make orthodontics both highly productive in terms of volume, but profitable based on minimizing rework time and time in clinic where you're continually trying to adjust stuff with maybe making mistakes in your treatment planning. And so if you want to make profitable orthodontics with several starts a month or more, then this will help an associate or a clinician get there. In fact, we've got one group that they're targeting up to 5 starts a week for one particular dentist. And in Australia, I don't know what it's like in America, but I mean, that's an extraordinary amount of revenue. if you were to do 5 starts a week or more in aligner orthodontics. So they're the 3 big things that we've got going at the moment, which you can get the promotion on with
Yeah,
your
I mean, also you
discount
guys should
code.
just be so amazingly proud. I'm proud to be collaborating with you that you're making education accessible and affordable to all. I mean, these dental students have invested $500,000 in what you might want to call a 4-year C course that didn't really deliver. Maybe they did sometimes 3 or 4 crown preps, and then practice owners are hiring enthusiastic associates that through no fault of their own have not done the reps to be able to deliver. And it's kind of messing up everything, right? And you guys have created a path for practice owners to invest in their associates to invest in themselves. I mean, I hope you're coming. I'm not sure. I know Dr. Link is coming in April. Some people on this call are going to come meet him in person. He's taller than me, but not funnier than me. Taller, but not funnier. And as we kind of wrap up with this, Cam, come at this from a different non-dentist angle, but you really started off with this great. I really enjoyed talking how the airline is really no different than the dental office and what we have to deliver. In a broad picture, what's your why for the business growth and success of your organization? Just reinforce why it's so important for practice owners to put this attention on their associates.
Yeah, I mean, look, if we kind of go back to where we started, Paul, at the end of the day, the biggest costs, the biggest challenge, the biggest bottleneck for DSOs and practice owners maximizing their return on the massive investment you have in a clinical group is your associates. And investing heavily just on feeding more leads and convertible contacts into your associates is amazing. But particularly as the economies tighten up and things change a little bit, then getting every single person that sits in a chair or lies in a chair with every one of your associates to maximize their oral health objectives and at the same time maximizing the productivity of that chair is absolutely key to the profitability and success of all of our business. So for us, helping organizations like you, we need to then identify what people really need to do to be successful, which a lot of it will be learning and competence-based. Make sure they're not learning and trying to do things that they shouldn't be doing. Prove competency before they start to do significant new procedures. And then do that in some sort of structured pathway over time that the associate can follow through with, but also the clinical owner, you can see their journey and actually manage the coaching and the mentoring and that continual life cycle of your people. And if done well, and if you can co-invest in some of this education with your people, it then creates the loyalty which retains them so that as they become amazing, they don't then just leave because you finished, helping them educate.
I mean, I was going to just jump in and share that it's such an important point, and kind of use a dentist term, bonds the associates and practice owners together to really grow together in a way that makes sense. My brother does a great job with the clinical training of our associates, but it's not always easy to do this in game, right? You had that picture of the orchestra, and it's hard to change notes in game, and then changing notes at a random hotel room is hard. So this just represents a really cool opportunity, and associates, I think, will embrace it because they don't, still travel for CE, still come see Link and I in person, and hopefully Cam. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty of getting your reps in, you can do it in a way that you're sitting in your comfort zone of your own operatory, your own hand pieces. Tell me, won't take too much more of your time, Cam, but I like what you said about the assistants. Some trainees are having the assistant come to the operatory while they're training so they can also learn. Tell me just a little more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, if you look at a dentist in a chair, the assistant is absolutely pivotal to their productivity with the right material, the right tool, the right assistance, the right suction at the right time. And so as the dentist builds their skill, the less skilled dentist often also have some of the lesser skilled assistants. And so the assistant, with their learning what the doctor's learning simultaneously, it just means that they can then replicate that as a team in the chair when they go live. And we're seeing incredible results. I mean, we've got one lady, Stephanie, in Sweden, And every single hands-on that she has done, she's had an assistant there, and she's just seen the assistant blossom in her ability to have the right activity taking place at the right time, and just get that intuition that just makes, when you see that amazing dentist and an amazing assistant working together, and they just intuitively just understand exactly what needs to happen next, it makes everything 10, 20% better, but it just means there's less fatigue at the end of the day. And that's what we're actually finding. So for the cost of having an assistant sitting there with the guy or the girl while they're learning, it makes enormous difference in transitioning that and supporting the associate or the dentist into real production when they shift out of practicing and just learning in that learning environment, Paul. It's a very significant thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing what I like to do. You're happifying these dentists, their assistants, their patients. I really appreciate you sharing tonight, Cam. I want to remind everybody that I've had the pleasure of talking with Cam Harris, the brother of Link Harris, the business brains behind putting this together. They're a collaborator and sponsor of Dental Nachos. You can text the word RIPE to 215-543-6454 to get a discount, nacho discount as a sponsor on their training programs. And also, my awesome team member is sharing in the chat how you can come see us live in person in Center City, Philadelphia. We hope Cam can make that trip too. Oh, here's your information. I was going to ask you there, Cam, put your main information up for a second in case people want to reach out to you directly, because I have one of my friends on here with multiple practices, and you would be okay with doing a one-on-one with a practice owner of 6 practices or 8 practices to kind of talk to them directly. Would that be cool with you?
Absolutely. In fact, I'm happy to have a chat with anyone with even one practice or at least one of my team. We're building out a team of people to consult and assist people in their growth and acceleration journey. But for sure, reach out to Paul if you want to get in contact with me. Reach out to me directly is absolutely fine. Just as a note, I will be in the United States in Chicago at Chicago Midwinter. I'll be in LA before that for a few days. I'll then be in Philly with you, Paul, I think towards the end of February.
Yeah.
And then I'll be in Florida and probably then Arizona. So I don't know where you're all based, but if there's an opportunity for me to visit with you, more than happy to invest an hour of time wherever you're located. If I can't get you this time, then I'll be back in March and then back in April. So please reach out. We're very excited to be working with you, Paul, and the amazing community of dentists and doctors and nacho persons.
Yeah, we're all bonded together over the world's greatest appetizer. Then share your QR codes too there, Cam. So if you're watching, I really appreciate, I see some of my personal friends on here watching in. I think this is I know this is going to be a game changer for so many dentists, but especially us that strive to grow our practices with associates at different skill levels based on their dental school experience. So you have everything from online learning to boot camps to your fellowship. So Cam, stick around for a minute. I'm going to take us off our Facebook Live. Anybody here who is in the Zoom room, if you want to pop anything into the Q&A, feel free to do so. Cam, that was outstanding. Gave me kind of a new angle on this a little bit from what Link had told me. So I really appreciate you sharing that with us.